It feels like only yesterday I said this. Aqara need to up their game with lighting, and it just so happens that they have. Not everything, albeit, but they've brought out what could possibly be my favourite smart ceiling light that I've ever reviewed. This is the Aqara Ceiling Light from the T1 range, and it's no ordinary ceiling light. But before I show you more of that, let me show you what's inside this thing and how you install it. Now overall, it's a pretty straightforward task, but it does mean playing around with your wiring. So as a bit of a disclaimer here, if you are in any way uncomfortable or incompetent at installing lights, don't do it yourself. Get someone who knows how to do it, or at the very least, someone that you don't like, so that it doesn't matter if they electrocute themselves. Jokes aside, I've got very little experience with wiring myself, so with the help of my very experienced father-in-law, it was up and running in about 10 minutes. Now, inside the unit is a huge bank of large LEDs that form a ring around the circuitry in the very middle, which contains all of the smart gubbins and a quick push and fit system for cabling whilst installing. In a channel around the outside is what is essentially an LED strip positioned around the entire circumference. That wires itself into the same power unit as the LED bank, leading to quite a stunning display of super bright LEDs. Obviously, it's not meant to be left naked and bare, so Aqara have made this rather nice looking translucent shell that's easy to twist onto the fitting, creating a diffused light effect around the now sealed unit. Now, the fact that this pretty much sits flush with the ceiling and that the shell creates a sort of sealed unit is something that I'm really appreciative of. One benefit of this is it means that no bugs can get in. I hate it when I have to go places and they have similar types of lights, but then they leave sort of small gaps between the ceiling and the lamp for bugs to get in. And then when the light is on, all you can see are these shadowy piles of bug corpses gathered in the light fitting that hasn't been cleaned out since 1992. It's rather repulsive. Well, it's next to impossible for this to happen with the Aqara Ceiling Light, and I'm rather grateful for that. But aside from this design benefit, I actually think this is a really nice looking light. But it is massive. It's far bigger than I thought it was going to be, and when it arrived, I genuinely was in shock. Now, that's not necessarily a bad thing. After all, the size has added to its overall impact and brightness of this light, but it's just something to consider that this has the diameter of a small planet, so it won't actually fit into every place, and in fact, I was a little bit worried that it wouldn't fit in between our wooden beams, but thankfully it fits rather snugly. Now, I was also particularly surprised by the thinness of the unit as well. Its shell and its edges is just 4.5 centimetres, much thinner than I thought it would be, which was another welcome design. In total, it hangs down by about 7 centimetres, which helps it blend into the ceiling without standing out too much when it's off, but still thick enough so that the glowing ring really pops when it's on. I must admit, its depth was one of the key reasons I wanted to change to this style in the first place. This might be a me problem, but I've been looking for a while at this type of light to create or replace almost all hanging lights in the house because I am a 6'8" superhuman. I'm getting to the point now, I'm getting to the age where I'm quite sick of banging my head on every single lampshade that I walk past. Despite living in my house for about 7 years, I still hit my head on things like my kitchen lampshade on an almost daily basis. And to add to the insult, when I do hit it, it makes this rather comedic noise. I've just never really found a replacement light fitting that sort of resonated with me enough to bother to change it until this thing. It's as if the gods themselves answered my prayers. Not only is this thing a nice looking and well designed light, and ticks all the boxes for being a slim profile while providing enough even light to illuminate the room, it also gives me full smart home functionality with it. Now, it pairs up to the Aqara system the same as all of their other devices, And then within the app, both the main light and the side light can appear as separate cards on the dashboard, and in turn, separate devices in other systems like Alexa. And on that subject, it will pair up with pretty much any smart home system you want, working with Zigbee 3, Matter, HomeKit, Alexa, Google Assistant, IFTTT, SmartThings, the list goes on. Now, the main light itself is tunable white with a full colour temperature range of around 2700 kelvins to 6500, giving an excellent range between really, really warm and really cool white. You've also got a few effects too, although these generally just set it to the appropriate temperature for that mood or effect. The breathing mode is the animated one for the main light, but I'm not really sure why you'd want to use this effect. It sort of gives me horror spaceship vibes. You can also manually control the brightness too with the slider, and it's capable of going really, really low, to the point where it almost doesn't look like it's lit up in the day, so that's pretty impressive. Possibly the most dim I've seen a smart light be able to go, actually, saying that. Although that's probably aided by the fact this is a great big translucent sheet, which obviously removes some of the lumens when the light passes through it. Either way, it's a stunning effect. Now, tapping on the auxiliary option gives me access to the control of the coloured light strip around the outside of the ring of the light. You can also access this from the card on the home screen, but either way, the effects and options for the side light are far more in depth, simply because it offers full colour customization. You've got spectrum control to choose the exact colour you're after, along with RGB palette control, but the real fun stuff is the effects. These give you some really funky animated effects that spiral around the outside of the light and look incredible. They've got some unusual ones that I'll probably never touch, but they've got a few which actually might come in handy, such as the party effect, which flashes between colours, or the meteor effect, which sends a single segment dancing around the outside of the light, with different colours changing in between each bounce. Perhaps my favourite, though, is the alert, which vigorously flashes red. Building this into part of your security routines is actually really useful. Imagine having one of these lights in every single room, and they all turn on and flash red if an intruder is detected. If I was a burglar and the house started flashing red, I'd be legging it faster than you could say Home Assistant. But if the presets aren't your cup of tea, the plus button allows you to create your own dynamic effect patterns by selecting the colours involved and the movement type of the lights. Now, what's fun is that you can set these effects into scenes within the Aqara smart home ecosystem, which then exposes these scenes or these effects to things like Alexa and HomeKit, and by doing that, you open up a world of smart home possibilities. You might remember that I reviewed the Aqara T1 LED strip earlier last year when I installed it as the backlight of my desk, and in that episode, I showed you how to use it to tell when someone is outside the front of the house. The central segment in the desk lights up green when someone's lurking around. Now, the same sort of thing can be done with this ring on the outside, being able to use it as a sort of status light for my security, for example. If someone's outside, it could light up green or red. But that's just one idea. The possibilities are endless and only limited by your imagination. At the moment, I'm working on it being able to indicate the air quality in the room, so I can have multiple around the house and I know what the air quality is like. And you might see that later in the month, where I'll be showing you how I'm building the perfect smart home routine setup to keep your air quality spot on. So if you want to see that episode, make sure you hit that subscribe button. But of course, all of this smart control and epic effects are certainly fun. But perhaps the most obvious use for me so far has been that I'm able to create an ambient atmosphere at night whilst providing some top-down light to see what I'm doing. I'm convinced there are two types of people here, right? There's normal people who pretty much never touch the main overhead light after dark, opting for a more ambient glow in the room for a cozy atmosphere. And then on the other side of the spectrum, you've got the absolute psychopaths that sit there at night with the main light on late into the evening like you're in some sort of hospital waiting room. Which one are you? I'd be interested to know how many of you are truly unhinged, so do let me know in the comments. As for me, I obviously fall in the category of normal people and prefer to create an ambience at night. My wife, on the other hand, she insists on turning it on every now and again. So, being able to at least have an orange glow of the outside ring on means that there's more ambient light to see what she's doing, for example, without sacrificing my overall nighttime ambience. And it creates a rather happy compromise between normal people and lunatics. Now, there's been another thing I've found as well, although this isn't specifically limited to the Aqara ceiling light, but more replacing hanging lights with this style of light. The profile, I actually feel, opens up rooms more. Living in an old Welsh house with low ceilings and wooden beams already feels like it's closing in on you, which is certainly snug and cosy, but the moment you add anything that hangs down, it becomes a nuisance, as I showed earlier. Even more so for tall people. Now, not having anything hanging just feels overall more spacious, and it's inspired me to continue to change the rest of the ceiling lights in the house. And there's one thing that's absolutely certain: I'll be replacing them all with the Aqara Ceiling Light T1M. But that's going to be a little bit costly, because the price of this without any discounts is £150. Now, on one hand, that is much more than I anticipated it would be, and it's certainly among the most expensive items from Aqara, but then on the other hand, it's probably the most niche. And then ultimately, there's just nothing that even comes remotely close to how cool this is. I did a bit of digging into alternatives, and there really aren't many, and certainly none with this level of integration and smart home control. So the price is at least partially justified. I truly do think that although it is pricier than what I would have hoped for, it's still an excellent product and well worth your considerations if you're thinking about adding this type of slimline light to your house. But as always, there's a few things I think could be improved. But thankfully, this list is very, very small. Now, the first would be that when the main light is on full power, it washes out the colour of the LED during the day, and it makes it much less noticeable. At night or in the evening, it's much more visible, but I would love to see brighter LEDs used in the ring in future. And secondly, and lastly, the dynamic effects in this ring are excellent, but there's no continual loop option. You've got rolling, which sends a single unit of LEDs beaming around it, but it does one revolution and then reverses the revolution and then back again over and over and over again. And although this looks cool, I want the option to have it go in a continuous circle, like this, over and over and over and over and over, like being a particle accelerated around the Hadron Collider. Thankfully, that's just a software thing, so I'm praying that Aqara can add that in. But overall, this is a wonderful piece of lighting from Aqara. I think they've nailed it again, and I'm really looking forward to seeing what else they create in their lighting range. What do you think, guys? Let me know in the comments, and remember, hit that subscribe button and notification bell if you want to see more of the T1 ceiling light and how I use it in my home, because later this month I'll be releasing an episode on how I use all my Aqara kit to stop the air from killing me in my smart home. But in the meantime, if you do want to see more content on Aqara lighting, check out my review of their LED strip light. But other than that, guys, I will see you back for another episode of STU'S Reviews soon. Better go put this back, actually, because my wife's going to kill me.